All right. Good morning, evening, afternoon, somewhere in between. I don't know. Dusk, dawn. Wherever you guys are watching this, we hope you enjoy our content. If you guys like what you see, go ahead and comment. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't know. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. And we'd like to know other topics that you guys might want us to jump into. Things that revolve around the Catholic faith, things that revolve around abortion, or where those two worlds collide. Today, we've got some interesting stuff, I think, and Kalvin's been doing some arguing. So what's been going on?
Well, in one of our posts on, I believe it was Blue Sky, we got the response back from one of our, pro-life, whatever we did, which was a screenshot of a list of Bible verses. And those Bible verses then next to them contained an argument on why the Bible itself was pro-choice. Now, these people couldn't really argue the fact other than posting...
It makes me laugh every time you say it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Other than the fact that they could post the image that they found somewhere else on the internet.
Right.
They couldn't really make the argument back as to why these were. And I know it was just something that was getting circulated because I got it from a few different people at a few different times. So at one point I just kind of stopped and thought, okay, I need to probably put together a little bit better response for this. So the responses that we've sent out have been a mix. Catholics out there, Catholic Answers is a wonderful resource. If there's something that you don't know, or maybe you know but don't know why you know it, Catholic Answers does a really good job explaining it. So
Right.
Some of these were a mix of ones that they've kind of responded to in the past. They're very eloquent in it, and then some of them are ones that I was able to deduce myself just by actually opening the book and reading the line right before the one that they posted.
Putting it into context, in other words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's funny how that works.
So we do have the verses. We have the very brief argument. So I think what we're going to do is I asked my friend here to look it up. Maybe we'll take turns reading if you get tired, but we can,
Or they might get tired of hearing me read it.
we can read the verse and then we'll talk about whether or not we think it contains pro-choice messages.
Yeah, I mean, we could have been wrong all along. Maybe God wants us to murder our babies. Somehow I don't think so. I wrote down your list of things here, the Bible verses that they gave you. The first one was in Genesis, correct?
Genesis 2, verse 7. Just the one verse. Yep, that'll prove the pro-choice argument.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I don't like to think too hard.
And I'll give you the argument for this one. So it says, Genesis 2, 7. Life begins at birth.
Okay. Well, let's see. 7. Then the Lord formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden in Eden, and in the east formed.
Do you want to take a guess at what the argument
First off, I skipped a line there. Well, you said it was starting out.
Life begins at birth.
birth because Adam was created from dirt. That's birth?
No. God breathed into Adam, so it doesn't actually start until at birth when you take your first breath.
Oh, interesting. I would kind of look at that more as once you receive the gift of life, which would be conception, because that would be the moment of conception, would be when God breathed on him.
That's a good point, yeah. And they, we think about it this way. I think this was a point that I saw come from Catholic Answers is not all babies breathe immediately once they're born.
That's true. That's why they used to slap them, right?
Yeah, sometimes. And I mean, that's actually been the scariest part every time I've gone in to see one of my children be born is that first... I mean, it feels like a long time. It can't be that long. But when the baby's first born and they're purple and they look like they're crying, but they're not making a noise.
Yeah.
And it's always kind of that moment right before they start breathing.
Do something.
But it happened every time. It always gave me a little bit of panic. But, I mean, I think they made the point that it can take up to a minute sometimes for the baby to breathe. So does that mean in this pro-choice argument that you're supporting from this Bible, baby can actually be born and we can still make that choice to murder the baby because it hasn't taken that first breath yet.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, if you look at like some of the things that Barack Obama supported before when he was in Chicago as a was it a community organizer or whatever, but he supported when somebody like a baby is born, survives abortion, to leave it in a back room and let it just die on its own.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. So there are people who argue for, can't remember the governor, they were talking about, those parents who maybe at the last minute decided, I don't really want this kid. We can't really abort it now because it's already coming out. So, they were actually talking about, maybe there should be a week period or a day period or whatever to then have the option to kill the baby after the baby has already been born and brought into the world.
Well, that's exactly what this would be promoting. So if you're of the mind that you're going to say that this verse would provide proof that the pro-choice argument would be biblical, you would also be support of infanticide.
Yep.
Up to a certain point, at least, bare minimum. If you're counting on that breath being the first thing to happen.
Right. It's funny because that's the same kind of argument when they talk about viability. Oh well, you're not a person until you're viable. Well, a baby can't take care of itself for years, and so
they're pretty dependent.
Yeah, and so are old people. But again, infanticide, a lot of them are in favor of that.
Not to mention, though, too, a good point is mentioned here that babies do breathe in the womb. They are receiving oxygen.
Right.
They're just not using their lungs yet. So even with that, they are breathing.
Right.
They're eating also, doing all kinds of stuff in there.
Right.
Dancing.
Running away from the camera. My kids did that. Is it a boy or a girl? Come on. Flip, 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 flip.
Well, nowadays people don't ask that question until you're about 10 anyway. So.
Oh, that's right. Don't want to assume their gender. Come on. Well, I see you're born with the parts, but I don't know where your brain is yet. Jeez Louise. Okay, that's a really poor argument in my opinion. Their argument was much more eloquent, but I think mine would suffice too.
And to be fair, so I did remember this was on Blue Sky, and I can't find the original posts because they do tend to block anybody with any kind of
logic, brain,
any kind of pushback. They're very sensitive over there.
Okay.
So,
the left
I sent back responses, but there was no engaging back and forth. I've gotten a couple people engaged. I don't think I've gotten anybody to engage on this particular topic, though. Anytime somebody sent this, I've sent over my responses, and then I usually end up getting blocked. To be honest, they're probably not invested enough to actually read what I'm... This is a long thing. I mean, because even our response back and forth here just now on just that one verse.
Right.
I mean, I've got to type that out. Then I have to count on the fact that they're going to go read it.
Right. I
do realize that it's not just for that person that I'm talking with then. If they're going to throw something out with 7 Bible verses with silly arguments to it, then really the post is more for other people so that we don't get other, maybe even young folks that are scrolling through, getting a bad impression of it. Maybe they've never read the Bible before,
right?
But they know that the Bible is this key point of
just enough
Christianity,
to
and then they read these stupid verses with these stupid arguments and not have any kind of retort to them. Somebody has to. It might not be for the person that I'm arguing with, but it could definitely be for somebody else scrolling through reading something silly. So,
right.
Anyway, verse 2.
So Exodus. Are we on Exodus now?
Exodus 21
through 22 through 35.
22 through 25.
20. That's what I said.
Fetuses are not persons. That's the only argument.
Okay. Well, how do they frame it?
That's the argument. Full. Just
that battery died?
It's about to.
Okay. All right. Well, that gives us a good point to take a break. We'll pick it up back on Exodus 21. Welcome back. Hopefully you thoroughly enjoyed that wonderful preview for our upcoming men's conference. We are talking about biblical arguments that supposedly the Bible somehow supports abortion, or that God made it okay. The next argument that we were going to is in Exodus chapter 21, verses 22 through 25, correct?
And the argument made is that fetuses are not persons.
All right, well, let's see. Pardon my bad reading. Let's see here. When men strive together and hurt a woman with child, so that there is a miscarriage, and yet no harm follows. Might help if that was out of the way. The one who hurt her shall be fined according as the woman's husband shall lay upon him. And wait a minute, doesn't that instantly go against? I mean, so far this is kind of the opposite argument.
Well, I'll go in depth on the actual argument here in a second, but yeah.
I mean, anyway. And if he shall pay as the judges determine, if any harm follows, then you shall give the life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and stripe for stripe.
Yeah. So the argument here being made is that because it's just a fine. So this is essentially saying that if two men were to fight, and during this fight, a woman who's pregnant is unintentionally harmed and miscarries the child because of this fight between the two men, that the aggressor, or not the aggressor, the man will have to pay the husband, father. I'm trying to think of how these.
Okay.
A fine
right.
for the miscarriage. So they're basically saying it's not even a person; it's just worth a fine. But there's a key aspect to this, because if you go up a little bit further, there's a verse here in the same kind of law type books where if a man intentionally kills his slave, he should be put to death. So really what's going on here is an unintentional intentional type argument,
right?
Where there's a fight and there's an unintentional.
So
even
like
today we don't
first degree
treat
versus
manslaughter. So even today we don't treat unintentional versus intentional the same,
right?
And that's what this is laying out. It's not laying out that it's okay that this happened. It's actually very much pointing out, no, this is something that wasn't okay. That's why you're going to get fined,
and you still have to pay for.
But it was
right.
unintentional, so it's not. However, you know what is not unintentional most of the time? Abortion. So you can't make the abortion claim that it's okay to have an abortion intentionally, ending a human life, when the Bible says that unintentionally ending a life could be subject to something like a fine.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, it seems like another pretty, that's a really bad argument again. But thank you for making it so easy for us. If somebody like me can knock your argument down, you're not doing very good.
Probably goes double for me.
All right, let's go to Numbers chapter 5, verses 11 through 13.
11 through 31. Fetuses,
I'm reading it upside down.
Fetuses should be aborted as proof of adultery. You might recognize this one. I've heard this one before for the same argument.
Oh, geez, this is a long one. And the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the son of Israel, if any man's wife goes astray and acts unfaithfully against him, if a man lies with her carnally," I almost said carefully, and it is hidden from the eyes of her husband, and she is undetected, though she has defiled herself, there is no witness against her, since she was not taken in the act. And if the spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and he is jealous of his wife who has defiled herself, or the spirit of jealousy comes upon him, and he is jealous of his wife, though she has not defiled herself, then the man shall bring his wife to the priest, and bring offering required of her a tenth of an ephah, right? Ephah of barley. He shall pour no oil upon. I'm sorry. He shall pour no oil upon it, no frankincense on it, for it is a cereal offering. If jealousy, a cereal offering of remembrance, bringing iniquity to remembrance. And the priest shall bring her near and set before the Lord, and there shall take holy water, blah, blah, blah. This is a whole lot of... Sorry, I'm just looking to see. This is all just kind of like...
Yeah, I can probably summarize it for you. So the accusation here is that if a woman commits adultery, or is suspected of committing adultery, the man has no way of proving it. She is to go to the priests and drink water mixed with dust from the temple floor, holy water, and that if she loses the child, the adultery had happened. If not, then it didn't happen. They need to go home and reconcile, essentially.
Okay.
So this kind of ritualistic test from God, where he says, if you suspect your wife of having an affair and being pregnant with somebody else's child, you bring her to the priest, she drinks some holy water. They're trying to claim that this is a planned abortion in the Bible, and that the drinking of holy water was having an abortion. But that's clearly not what it is, even even if you kind of zoom out a little bit. It's not even condoning the fact that if your wife was pregnant from another man, that you should do this. It's saying that this would be a way to test it through God. And even if it is the case, God can end human life.
Right.
We can't. God can. God takes the firstborn of Pharaoh's son, right? Mm-hmm. So God has the ability, and it is within his absolute authority to be able to end human life. We don't have that ability to make the choice to end a human life flippantly, like the argument would be made in abortion.
Right.
But like I said, this is really more so of a test of suspicion. So how many women back in this time frame got suspected, went and drank some holy water, and then went home and reconciled with their husband because nothing happened? Oh, that was a rhetorical question. I wasn't waiting for an answer.
How do
you feel?
I don't know why, because when I'm looking at this, it kind of reminds me of the witch trials, where well, if she's a witch, then she sinks, and or if she floats, then she's a witch.
Python one. What if she's a duck?
What if she's a duck? What if there was two pigeons, or however that goes? Okay. I guess I understand.
It takes a very surface level reading of this text to try to I don't know if surface level is the word I want to use there. To be able to say that this particular ritual on suspicion between a husband and wife is condoning intentionally killing a baby. Not even just leaving it up to God. Like, drink some holy water and leave it up to God.
Right.
That's not what you're doing when you take an abortion pill.
No.
You know what you're doing. You know what it's going to do. And yet you're taking it anyway. You're not drinking holy water and saying,
Right. I think if I'm going to give them a bone, if I'm looking at it from maybe a libtard's perspective, I might say that the overall goal behind their, the verses that we've seen so far is more that they're not valuing life as much as we claim to value life now. Mm. So if I were going to say anything, that's maybe where I would see where they're trying to make that connection. But as for an abortion, there's nothing there that really equates. Anyway, I'm not really sure how to respond to that. I'm not really sure how to respond to any of these, really. But this is just, the whole thing is just like the legalism of like how the ceremony is supposed to go forward. Plus, I read terribly when I'm reading in front of people, so I apologize for that. Let's see.
Next one up.
Deuteronomy 28.
We got Deuteronomy 28, 18 through 24.
All right. Well, it looks like we're right at a point where we should take a break anyway. So, again, we're going to give you guys a little something to watch, and we'll be back in just a moment. All right. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you're still watching, and hopefully you enjoyed that that preview of whatever we just put in there, because I don't know what we're putting in there yet. We are doing a men's conference. Luckily, I won't be speaking at that men's conference because I don't think anybody wants to see that, but we do have a few guests. I don't know that we're going to announce them right this minute, but one of them is Jesse Romero, and so we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a conference on men, Catholic men in particular, and how to be a Catholic man in this society. So we've been kind of working on that for a little while now. We're pretty excited. So what do we got next?
Next up, we got Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy.
Do.
This is 18 through 24.
Deuteronomy 28, 18 through 24. The claim is life is not sacred.
Oh, so that's kind of what I was just saying, that their argument is in the last few.
Yeah, but this is the actual argument.
But I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Every one of them kind of seems like that's kind of what they're pointing to.
Life is not sacred.
Right. Well, because there's no objective truth or anything like that either. All right, let's see.
This one might be fun. So, yeah, read 18. What did I say, 18 through 19?
You said 18 through 24.
Sure, yeah, do that.
Cursed shall be the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your ground, the increase of your cattle, and the young of your flock. Cursed shall be when you come in, and cursed shall be when you go out. The Lord will send upon you curses, confusion, and frustration, and all that you undertake to do, until you are destroyed and perish quickly on account of the evil of your doings, because you have forsaken me. The Lord will make pestilence cling to you until he has consumed you off the land which you are entering to take possession. The Lord will strike you with consumption, and with fever, and inflammation, and fiery heat, and with drought, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue you until you perish. And the heavens over your head shall be brass, and the earth under you shall be iron. The Lord will make the rain of your land powder and dust. From heaven it shall come down upon you until you are destroyed.
So this started with verse 18. Mm-hmm. Now if we scroll up to the beginning of this section, would be verse 15, and
right.
It's titled Curses for Disobedience. So 3 verses up from all of these horrible things that is being threatened, it says, "But if you do not obey the voice of the Lord your God, carefully observing all his commandments and statutes which I give you today, all these curses shall come upon you and overwhelm you." So this is a warning for disobeying God and the curses that will befall you if you do. This isn't saying life isn't sacred.
Right.
It's saying obey God.
Yeah, kind of very plainly. Okay. I mean, okay. A lot of bad stuff happens to a lot of people. I mean, you could just, instead of reading this, you could just go to the book of Job and say, oh, look at all these bad things that happen.
You know what? Is this Deuteronomy?
Yeah, Deuteronomy 28. I was looking to see if what the Didache had to say about this specific reading here. Of course,
It says that it supports abortion.
oh,
In case you didn't know.
that's why
Yeah.
it's not in there. Oh, dang it! Man, we got to change our whole outlook.
I think I was thinking of a different part of the Bible. So we can move on.
Okay.
Control. And the next one is going to be Second Kings, but this is the one that I kind of skipped that one, and we might need to go to the next one.
Let's go to 2 Kings 15. Go verse 16, right? 15, verse 16.
Yes.
At the at that time, what is this? Menahem? How do you say that? Anybody smarter than me out there? I'm sure there's plenty. At that time, Menahem sacked Tupua and all who were in its territory, from Tisra on, because they did not open it to him. Therefore, he sacked it and ripped it up, and all the women who were with child.
So the argument in this one is that he ripped open a pregnant woman. So, pro-choice.
Interesting.
Now, what the Book of Kings is, so this is essentially, this is a record of a bunch of kings and the things that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And without going through the whole thing here, there are bad people in the Bible. There are bad things. People, men, do bad things and good things in the Bible. It's very much it's very much a theme throughout the Bible, where people are kind of risen up by God, and then they fall, and risen, and they fall. And so there is this, so an account of a king doing something bad in the Book of Kings, which explains what the kings did.
Well, and again,
this reads more like a history book.
This is more saying that they're being punished this way. It's not saying that they were able to do this on themselves. This wasn't something, well, I was inconvenienced by my king, and so therefore I was able to destroy my baby. It's a punishment. So again, it doesn't, the logic isn't there. You know, I mean, you could go through, there's a lot of parts in the Bible where they talk about people being taken down and bad things happening to them because they were disobedient. Some of it by God's hand, and some of it by, God just removing his protection. Bad things happen because you're disobedient. Bad things happen in general, but all of it stems from sin in the first place.
Yeah.
Whether it's your sin or not, that depends on the situation, I suppose. So, I mean, we live in a fallen world. So again, there's nothing compelling about this argument either. Not that I'm surprised, but the next one I have down is Isaiah.
Isaiah 13:18.
Okay, 13.
I actually don't have that one pulled up.
And that's just one verse here, huh? Oh.
Yeah, so it'll probably be. Well, what's the argument? I toggled my screen too fast. So Isaiah 13:18. God will kill unborn fetuses.
Okay, well, I'm glad this one's short, but let's see where they're talking about God and killing unborn. I almost said fetuses. I don't know what a fetus is, but it sounds like some sort of character from a Jim Henson production. Okay, their bows will slaughter the young men. They will have no mercy on the fruit of the womb. Okay.
Yeah, so
here's a question, because do they know what the fruit of the womb means? I don't think they do. Because I could say my children are the fruit of my wife's womb, right? So that doesn't mean, they say young men. Well, these men, that it's simply saying that men are being killed, people are being killed, doesn't necessarily mean unborn kids. It doesn't mean any of that.
So, and this is another good, this one is similar to the one we get in Deuteronomy. They pick out that one phrase because it has fruit of the womb in it, right? Referring to a unborn child, if that is the context we're taking that in. But if we scroll up again, they're ignoring 17 other verses here. And this one starts out, an oracle concerning Babylon, a vision from Isaiah. This is a warning from Isaiah to Babylon.
Right.
So there's other ones. Leading up to verse 18. But again, like we discussed with disobeying God and there being consequences to it, this is also a bunch of things that Isaiah is seeing will happen to Babylon because they are not obeying God.
Right. So it's a warning. It's not even necessarily anything that actually happened. And it says, whoever is found will be thrust through, and then whoever is caught will fall by the sword. Their infants will be bashed in pieces. Well, they could have used that one.
Well, they did, actually. So I think I combined...
Before their eyes, their houses will be plundered, and their wives ravished. But again, this one isn't saying that God's going to do it.
Yeah.
It's saying that he's going to take his hand away and let these bad things happen.
So the infants bashed one was part of this. I think they had it as two different arguments.
Right.
But since they're so close, I think I mixed them into the same argument because they're so close in proximity to each other.
Right.
But again, a warning for not obeying God. And this is a prophecy from Isaiah, a prophet, who is seeing these things that will befall Babylon. Endorsing abortion? Yes or no?
No, I don't see it at all. I'm not really sure, again, where they're coming up with this stuff because like you said, you go back.
But this actually, I think this ties into our. This might tie back into our last episode where we talked about demons and kind of worshiping, self-worship in a way. And what is, I think, I mean, I brought it up earlier, but I don't think I connected this fully. God is the only one who has the authority to end human life at will, at whim, right?
Right.
We don't have that authority. We don't have... But what are we doing when we go back to like the Satan worship and stuff like that, where it's all self-centered, all doing what you want? This is very much still the same thing. When it comes to abortion, you are now taking God's... You're playing God, and deciding the death. And this is proving it, because all these times where you can reference a baby or a fetus or unborn child dying, it's at a warning from God that these things will happen for disobeying God. So you want to be able to take that power of God into your own hands and terminate that child.
Yeah. For your own power.
Maybe I didn't articulate that well. I think it's in my head fairly well. But
that's good.
We'll see. See how it sounds later. Anyway.
Say what?
We're at 12 now.
12. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to...
One more when we get back, and I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll do one more after this. In the meantime, enjoy what you're watching and leave a comment, subscribe, all that jazz. All right. All right. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you've made it this far. I apologize again for my wonderful reading. We are on to the last one, which is Hosea, chapter 9, verses 10 through 16, it looks like. I wonder if this is the one that's going to win me over. Get a
this is the one I'm thinking.
A membership to Planned Parenthood. Do they have memberships? I'm sure they probably do. Like, you know,
punch cards.
12 abortions in a year.
Never mind.
I don't want to be callous with this stuff, but I mean, we talk about it so often and deal with it so often and see it in the world, and how many millions of babies are being murdered every year. Whether it's pure abortion, whether it's the abortion pill, just so many issues, and people that are even quote unquote on our side who support a lot of the stuff that
we've covered a lot of this on other episodes, like lukewarm faith.
Yeah.
We haven't done IVF yet, but that's another one that I run into a lot of people who say they're pro-life, adamantly against abortion, but very much support IVF.
Right. That's one that we can do. That's an episode that we can talk about and get into, because I think a lot of people just misunderstand the position, and they misunderstand exactly what IVF does. But anyway, so we're back on Hosea.
Which was it, 9? What did I tell you this one was?
10 through 16.
Chapter 9.
Yep.
10 through 16. I'm going to scroll ahead here because I think this one... Yeah, I think this is the one.
It starts off with like grapes in the wilderness.
Okay.
I found Israel. Like the first fruit on the fig tree in the first season, I saw your fathers. But they came to Balapeori. That's one of the problems with reading some of the stuff in the Old Testament, is I don't know how to say that. And consecrated themselves to Baal, or Baal, or however you say it.
So this one actually, this is the one that I combined this one. So they had two arguments for this one. Before we get too far, they had both verses, but it was like chapter 9, 10 through 11, and then a whole second one that was chapter 9, 11 through 16 or so. I just made it all one because it's going to make the same point anyway.
Right.
And it says God will destroy fetuses in utero, and the other argument was God will dash infants into pieces and rip open pregnant women.
Which goes back to what we just read.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the two arguments. Go for it.
And became destable like the thing they loved. Ephraim's glory shall fly away like a bird. No birth, no pregnancy, no conception. Even if they bring up children, I will bereave them till none is left. Woe to them when I depart from them. Ephraim's son, as I have seen, are destined to prey. Ephraim must lead forth his sons to slaughter. Give them, O Lord, what will you give? Give them miscarrying womb and dry breasts. Every evil of theirs in Gilgal, there I began to hate them, because of the wickedness of their deeds. I will drive them out of my house. I will love them no more. All their princes are rebels. Is that it? It's because it starts on another. Ephraim is stricken, their root is dried up, they shall bear no fruit. Even though they bring forth, I will slay their beloved children. Okay.
So I'm going to do a little bit of rapid fire here, because this is the one that actually, this was the last one I encountered, and it was the one that kind of set me off the most. And you may have caught on to it a little bit there. So this one, and like I said, I remember reading their second argument, and then reading up a little bit to see what this was talking about, and then realizing what it was talking about, and then realized that they actually made another argument about that one as well. But this starts out in verse 10. I looked on your ancestors, but when they came to Baal, so when they, and I think you read, consecrated themselves to Baal. Mm-hmm. And what we just talked about in our last episode is Baal, Moloch, was a deity that was often a demon, that was often worshipped by the Israelites from time to time, and this angered God. God did not like when the Israelites would go off and to worship Baal, Moloch. And one of the things, and I'm actually going to reference back to, that's why I said I was going to rapid fire, but reference back to our episode that we just did. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. One of the things that they did to consecrate themselves to Baal was sacrificing their children to Baal. And in Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Corinthians, I have a few of them right here. We've got stuff You shall not offer any of your offspring for immolation to Moloch, thus profaning the name of God. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, because the way that they offer to their gods every abomination to the Lord detests, even burning their own sons and daughters. God is very clear when talking about Baal, Moloch, that he doesn't like it when people kill their children and sacrifice to this deity.
Right.
And yet they're using a pro-choice argument in a verse of God essentially saying, these are all the bad things that are going to happen to you because you did the thing I told you not to do, specifically, which is go kill your kids.
Right.
At this altar of Baal.
Abortion.
So
as they had it then.
When I read this one, I almost... my head almost exploded. I'm like, how are you making a pro-choice claim that God is going to punish you? And even God is fully righteous too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of an easy equivalent to this. This is like, in a very simple way, hopefully this isn't blasphemous, like if you put your food in front of a kid and they don't want to eat, you say, fine, go to bed. You don't get your food. I'll throw your dinner away. That's what God's kind of saying here, where he's saying, fine, you don't want to be with me? Fine, I'll take your kids. I'll take your crops. I'll take...
Right. Or if you're going to sacrifice your kids to Baal...
Right. If you're going to go to Baal, I'll just take them myself.
Right.
And so that's essentially what's going on in this Bible verse. And yet, we're going to read this and say, oh, he's for... They don't read any of it. They just read the part that says, throws infants, dashes infants against the bricks, or whatever it says. They read that part and they go, oh, yep, see, God is for killing babies like I am, so I'm like God, and I can make the decision to kill a baby. It's a very twisted mindset here.
Yeah, well, and never not losing sight of the fact that all of these are punishments.
Again,
it's not because I get to do this wonderful thing because I want to go to college or whatever. It's no, you don't get to have this thing because you've done something that you're being wicked. Something in your heart is wicked. You're doing bad things, lead to bad circumstances.
Yeah, this one, especially because it had to do with Baal, and we know that people were sacrificing their kids to Baal, and we know that God didn't like it. And so they're being punished for doing something he told them not to do, in even as specific as it being killing their own kids. And you're trying to use it to justify abortion. This one is mind-blowing.
I think it's in a way it's funny because we're looking at this as two guys who are not theologians.
Oh, no, I don't. I have everything written here. I had to go look it up.
We go look it up. That's a wonderful thing about being a Catholic, if I might say. I'll just diverge for a second. Say, we have answers. We have the Catechism, which if you've never read... you've never looked at, every time you have a question about what the church teaches, you can pull this catechism up and you can look through it and actually find the answers to everything. There
is no argument that somebody's going to make to you online or in person. In person might be a little bit difficult, especially if you don't have everything memorized.
Right.
But there's no argument, especially online, that somebody can make that hasn't been heard and addressed by the church at some point.
Right.
Whether it's some kind of Protestant argument against, our dogmas on Mary, or whether it's a atheist on the fact that it's okay to kill children and the Bible says so. All of these things have been addressed in some way by the Catechism of the Catholic Church because it's been around for 2,000 years.
Right.
And they do a very good job of answering questions.
And look, if you don't know, if somebody comes up to you and says, well, why do people go through suffering? Why do, they bring up something and you don't know the for sure answer. You say, I'm not sure. And if you don't know, that's okay. Say, I'll get back to you. Let me look it up. That's going to help strengthen that person's hopeful faith in the future, but also help strengthen you because you're going to go out and you're going to look up that information and you're going to come back armed with that knowledge. I think that God leads these difficult people towards us for a reason because, again, iron sharpens iron. We need to keep each other strong in our faith, but also when you're dealing with people and having to go through the rigmarole to try to figure out what the answers actually are so you're not coming up with your own half-assed answer, I think that makes you a better Catholic, a better Christian in the long run.
And that's, I think that brings me back to my point from the beginning of the video. If you don't know something, but you do know, right? You know, okay, we don't believe that, or yeah, we do believe that. You just aren't sure on the specifics. There's ways to find out. Even with this, I saw this post. I'll try to find the original one if I can, and so that we can put it somewhere to display. But I saw it a couple of times, and the first couple of times I ignored it, just like, no, it doesn't. Like, oh, the Bible supports abortion. No, it doesn't. And then finally I saw it enough. I'm like, okay, let's open the Bible and find out.
Right.
And I went and looked, and it didn't take much to find out that this was just gibberish. It's just trying to confuse people with what the Bible says to justify their own agenda. And
it's a hook to grab those people who are slightly Christian. I'm Christian. They don't go to church. They don't do anything that actually Christians would do, but they claim to be, I'm spiritual. And so that, and that's fine, because I read somewhere that the Bible supports it. So, they didn't go and do their own research, and they didn't read the 3 verses beforehand or just the line beforehand.
Or understanding what it's referencing.
And if something smells fishy, it probably is.
Yeah, if you have a 2,000-year-old church that's saying abortion is a mortal sin.
It always has.
And it always has been. And it is the equivalent of murder, killing an unborn child. The Bible's not going to contradict that.
No.
They've been pretty... You're not going to find it in there. And another good resource, like I said, Catholic Answers. They do really good apologetics, and similar to the Catechism, if there's a question that somebody's ever asked you online, I would almost guarantee Catholic Answers has responded to it as well, because they do apologetics. So they get hundreds of thousands of people thrown at them.
Real quick, I would say, if you have any questions and you pull up the Catechism, you have no idea what you're looking at, Catholic Answers is great. Listen to Patrick Madrid. He's 99.9% right every time you listen to him. There's a couple.
You can listen to us, but probably not as high a ratio of being right.
Well, yeah, you might be disappointed. We haven't answered.
We're
all
just
the
going to tell you to
questions.
go to Catholic Answers. So.
Most of the stuff, all the stuff that we're quoting to you and stuff is based on things that we've learned through people like Jesse Romero. There's so many resources out there, so don't give up on. If you get frustrated because you go to the Catechism or somewhere else and you don't find the answer's out there. The Catholic Answers is, it's kind of named Catholic Answers for a reason. They have a lot of stuff out there that you can get, resources and stuff. The Catholic world is flourishing right now. There's a lot of Catholics, a lot of people waking up to Jesus, and we're in a crazy time. And hopefully we can see abortion get squashed. Not because necessarily just because a law passes, but because people know in their hearts that it's wrong. That's what we need to get to.
Yeah. Put on the armor. Defend the faith.
Yeah. So with that, God bless you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. If you want to see us do something different, let us know.
Ideas for topics.
Yeah, topics would be good.
That would be really good.
We're going to have a buddy of ours come on and do an interview pretty soon, I think, and we might be meandering over to his channel. He's got his own channel. But until next time, we'll see you later.